Okay, so for today with decimals, we are comparing decimals. So we're going to make our numbers happy. Initially, starting off, before we even go into that, we need to know these symbols. So our less than, one helpful way, I do have our math alphabet down here, but one helpful way that students kind of remember the less than is that if you make an L like this, it forms the same direction as the less than symbol. All right? And also, whenever you read a sentence, which direction do you read from? To.
Left.
Ashley?
You read to the right.
From left to right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you were to see something like just 3. In fact, the number 3 and the number 4. If you're reading it from left to right, and I know this is what you did when you were younger, saying 3 is less than 4. We're going into decimals now, all the way to the thousands. So one thing I did was I included 3.3, or how do I read this in word form? Kate? 3 and 3/10 is less than 3 and 4/10. Now, one way to really look at it, I don't like them when they're side by side because you can't compare them. That's a very good idea, Matthew. If you will take your numbers, whatever you're comparing, and line them up, and then go from left to right and compare. Which one's greater, Olivia? Out of these two numbers, which one's greater? What do you? They're what? They're the same. So I can't compare those. So what you have to do, Olivia, once they're the same, you have to go over to the next place value spot. The decimals are the same. We don't compare decimals.
Compare people's names. If they both have the same first letter, then you go to
the
next
second.
letter.
Very good. That's a great assimilation.
Letter,
so our next number or place value happens to be the tenths. Now suddenly we see a difference. And which one's greater? Jack.
Bottom. Which one's greater? The bottom one.
Okay. How do we read that? Matthew.
3 and 4/10.
Awesome. So that's whenever we go and we make our math sentence. 3 and 3/10 is less than 3 and 4/10. You're going to be doing some greater comparisons today, though. They're going to include not only your tenths, but your hundredths and your thousands. And this is our big readiness standard. I can compare and order 2 decimals to the thousandths using comparisons with those symbols less than, greater than, and equal to. I'm going to write down what standard that is. That is 5. Let's check it out. 5.2b. It's a readiness standard. I remember what it meant by readiness standard?
That you don't. I don't.
Anybody? Ashley?
Maybe you don't have to know it as well as you know the other.
Well, that readiness standard represents that it is a key point this year. So if it's a key point, it's those that are, especially during the time of our testing, is tested more. That doesn't mean it's any more important, but it is a greater concept, greater covered. Okay?
Covered more.
Covered more.
Oh,
Let's compare these 3. In fact, let's just go from left to right. What are they? Sparkly?
The equivalent?
They are all equivalent. Nice big math word. So far, they're equivalent. And then I go over, and y'all, you're not going to have, unfortunately, on your paper, you don't have a magic curtain that can appear and uncover from left to right. But this guy, your hand, acts as a magic curtain. If you start on the number and then scoot over one place value to the next. So my 10s, they're all the same. So what do I do next, Mark?
go to the next place.
Next place value. Suddenly I have a difference. Which one's the greatest?
Big.
3.47. This is my greatest so far.
3 and
Now I'm going to have to do, what's my next action?
Go to the next place value.
Next place value. And I have a 2. And what exists here?
0.
I can simply put a 0 here and a 0 here to show that they all align.
So that's the second.
That's making our decimals happy, ensuring that they all look like they have the
So
same
the
amount,
top
because
one's
this
great.
0 makes them equivalent.
Oh, yeah. With the order is the greatest three.
Which one comes next?
The top
The top one,
and
2,
the middle.
and then the middle one, 3.
4 missed.
So they're not going to do this conveniently for you. A lot of the times you're not going to simply have them lined up. In fact, let me show you one way you're likely going to see it. And I write this down in your notes. Since this one comes first, 3.470, is it greater than or less than the next one?
Greater.
It's greater than, so I need to go greater than symbol is greater than 3.462. And is that second one greater than or less than the third?
Greater.
It's greater than. Notice the way I'm making 2 comparisons. 3.460. You see the way that there are 2 comparisons within this? Right here
I can't see.
and right here. Sorry, I'll get under your way. You might see it like that, and they might ask you, is this true or not? This would be a true statement. We just formed it. Let's see what we have next. Ooh, you know what? That's a question we're about to do from our homework for tonight. Let's create another. Let me simply, and it doesn't have to have whole numbers, but it may. So 7.9, 7.139, 7.25, and then how about 8.999? What could be my very first step? Okay, adding the zeros. Thank you. Would you like to come do that? Come make our numbers happy. Very good. Thank you, ma'am. One thing I want y'all to ensure you do is to make all of them align. Like your decimals need to be lined up. Your ones place needs to be lined up. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Because sometimes you might see it like this. 6.4, 57.2. What are you noticing right offhand?
The decimal is off.
The decimal is off. Ensure that all places are lined up. And so, first thing I would go do,
It's like dot to dot. You can't go diagonal.
move that entire number. Line up the decimal. And now you see this one's greater. Okay? So, she added our zeros. Now, that's when I would take my magic curtain, my hand, and go from left to right. I love the way you said, Matthew, like comparing your names. Because I walked into my my daughter's first grade class, and I actually went to my son's kindergarten curriculum night last night, and they all had their names underneath the alphabet to show, like, Owen starts with an O, Olivia starts with an O, but which one came first? they had to go to the second letter.
So
that's a perfect
So it would. They usually go by last name.
Well, in kinder, they're just trying to learn how to write their first. Okay, so I go to my decimal. Next, I suddenly now, I can see, Jack, I can see which one comes first, which one comes second. If I were going from least to greatest.
The second one? Yeah.
The second one goes first, so I'm going to put a 1 by it. 1. Which one goes second? Ashley?
Second for least greatest? Okay. The 100 under the 1.
How do you say that in word form?
7 and 2 10.
Good. 7 and 2 tenths. Next.
That's 2 tenths.
Place.
Next would be 7.9.
Or 7 and.
7 and 9 tenths.
Right, and I know that that's not the entire number, but that's what you see so far. Yes, sir.
Is this for least greatest?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
And then obviously the next one would be 8
Right.
and 9.
Okay, so basically what I'm really trying to get you to see is it does not matter how many digits there were originally. Before Kate came and added these zeros, this one looked like it was the smallest. But it's really not whenever you're comparing from the greatest value, because tenths are 10 times bigger than the hundredths place. But she came and made our decimals happy. And if you do that first thing, surefire way you're not going to miss this, hopefully. All right, let's go into a couple of questions from our homework.
Ooh, homework was